A man came up to me. He was a Messianic, Spirit-filled rabbi, and he said, are you familiar with the meaning of the word testimony and remember in Hebrew? And I actually said, no, I'm really not. But he said, to us, the word testimony means do again, or do time again. And we believe that when we decree what God did yesterday, that the same power is released today. And I don't want to take just his word for it, even though I believed him. He obviously knew what he was talking about. But I have found that here's a couple of definitions that will help us as we understand why we celebrate again. Why do we have to connect with what happened yesterday and bring it back into today? The word remember, here's what the International Standard Bible Encyclopedia, ISBE, says about this word. Verbs used in parallel to the Hebrew word zakar, which is the root word for remember or testimony, do not refer to the past only. Thus, remembering is not merely a recalling of the past, but also a call to action now. When God remembered Samson, his strength returned. You ever wonder why the Bible says God remembered? I used to wonder about that. I think, what did he do, forget? Or why is it telling us that, did he recall to his memory? No, that's not really what it's saying. This word has this concept of you do it again. So when he remembered Samson, he brought his strength back. He remembered Hannah when she prayed. She said, God, remember me. And when the Bible says he remembered her and she conceived. This is why Jesus said about the communion or the meal or the Last Supper when he told the disciples, as often as you do this, you do remember me, or you do it in remembrance of me. Paul picked up on that in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 24, 25, and 26. And he says again, when we do this in remembrance of him. And then he went on to say, because when we do it, we declare his death until he comes. We are doing more than just remembering in our mind or recalling the fact that he died. We are bringing it back into the present, and every time we partake of that, we partake of the same power that happened at the cross. And we proclaim it. The word testimony is very similar. And by the way, this is why God said in Isaiah, put me in remembrance. Not because he forgets, but because when we step into this principle of putting him in remembrance and calling forth out of yesterday what he did today, we tap into the same power. The word testimony, here's what the Theological Word Book of the Old Testament says about this word. The Hebrew root word means to repeat or do something again. Not just remember something and not just say it, but to do again. It's the continuance of a past or present event again. So it's the word addition. When you begin to testify of what he did yesterday, he brings you full circle and you step into the same power and it happens again. It's a word that means repetition. So the preaching of the gospel, Romans says, is the power of God. It's more than a message. It's more than remembering what he did. The New Testament says when you proclaim it, the power of the cross is released again. This rabbi said to me, we are now seeing miracles because we are sending people that have been healed of a certain disease to people that are struggling with that disease, and all they do is they stand over them every day and share their testimony. And as they repeat over and over and over what God did for them 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, the same power begins to flow, because that's what the word means. As they testify, he does it again. And the same power that healed them is released today. So So to the Hebrew way of thinking, time is alive. To them, time is not linear, time is circular. And they believe that we recycle back through the seasons. And we recycle back to the same place. And when we do, we can tap into the same power that was there then and decree it today. Tell the old stories. Because it's more than just inspiring us. It's that when we decree what He did yesterday, it releases the same power today. This is why He said, the words that I speak in Isaiah 55:11 will return to me void. If you will take my words and you will begin to say my words will come alive, and we'll experience what Jesus experienced in John 6:63 when He said, the words that I say to you are spirit and life. They are alive because they are tapping into something that is eternal. And when I speak them, life comes forth today. That's why the word for confession in the New Testament means say the same thing God says. Because when you take what He said and you say it today, you're releasing the same power today that He spoke of yesterday. Testify of what He did, you'll bring it back into today, full circle. So the Bible says God remembered Abraham. God had not forgotten Abraham. But He said to Moses, I remember what I said to Abraham. Now, when He says, I remember it, He's saying, I am bringing the fullness of what I spoke to him into action today. There's nothing Egypt can do that can stop this. There's nothing that Pharaoh can do to stop it, because I remember covenant today. And when I remember it, everything that I said comes into play now. Nehemiah said, he's going to go back and rebuild the wall. He said, God, you got to remember what you promised Moses, because if I can bring that promise up to the surface here and begin to decree that promise, then all of a sudden everything you did for him, all the power that you released at the Red Sea, all the power of Passover, all the power of the plagues, everything we need will be released if I can get you to remember covenantally what you did there. Deuteronomy 8:18, remember the God who brings you wealth. If you can tap into covenantal thinking and remember the promise and begin to speak His word today, you will tap into the covenant of wealth. Caleb defeating the giant at Hebron, Kiriath Arba, city of the greatest giant, Hebron. He starts by saying to Joshua, I have a promise. He starts recalling, remembering the word of the Lord given to him. I have a promise. It's kept me alive for 45 years. It really doesn't matter how old I am. It really doesn't matter how many people around me have died. I couldn't die. It would have been impossible for me to die. The covenantal word of promise that was spoken over me, I have kept it alive. It is not a yesterday word. It is a today, now word, because I am remembering and testifying of what He spoke to me yesterday. Therefore, the same power that was available then is available now. Amen.